What does $80 million worth of weight loss advertising do for you? We're going to talk about that in just a moment. I've run 3 national weight loss brands, and every time I would go to a meeting, usually when new people were there, new staff, new managers, new area managers, maybe even a new ownership, franchisee, whatever their role was, the question was always asked, why don't we do national advertising? And I would break down the financials of what it looked like to do national advertising, because the general perception was that each individual local location was getting absolutely killed by a competitor's, what they perceived as being national advertising. And I would have to dispel the myths of what national advertising is really all about. And the fundamentals of it really came down to this. Hey, I would do a media, I would get a hold of NBC, ABC, CBS, I'd get a hold of some of the cable networks and get a budget number from them as to what it would cost to run a sufficient number of ads in national advertising during the critical day parts and time periods we needed to reach our demographic. And even if I adjusted it for inflation over the last few years, it really came down to this. Every center would had to have spent almost 5 times more than they were spending locally on a national ad that would be seen less often. So it illustrated the point very effectively that what you do locally is what moves the dial. So in the course of all that, the centers that I've been affiliated with, the centers that I've had ownership in, the centers that I've managed, the brands that I've led and directed, they collectively have spent somewhere north of $80 million in advertising, radio, television, newspaper, direct mail, billboards, signage, as well as in the digital space over the last 5 years. In the digital space, whether it was Facebook advertising, Google AdWords, any kind of pay-per-click program, anything along those lines, over $80 million has been spent. So let me share with you the centers that get the biggest rate of return, what they have done, where they get the biggest rate of return. But let's look at some metrics real quick. This is no secret sauce. You shouldn't be spending more than 10% of your total sales revenue on advertising. If you're spending more than that, it shouldn't be more than a couple of points. If you're a little less than that, fantastic. Some centers routinely never go above 8%. Some centers have no choice. They maybe live closer to 15% because of the market they're in. It just might be the advertising rates are just sufficiently higher. But there's a way to measure that, and we train all of our client ownership and media buyers on how to do that for our demographic and cost per thousand and what the cost per lead should be in client acquisition and all of that. So you shouldn't really be, if you use 10%, that's a good gauge. So what kind of return should you have on that 10%? On both payroll as well as on advertising, you should have a minimum of 8 to 10 time return on it. For some advertising vehicles, you could have as much as a 20 time return on it. But that only works if you do certain things. And let's walk you through these certain things. There are centers that run ads that say, oh my gosh, these ads pulled like crazy for the last few years, and all of a sudden they stopped. Well, we shop a lot of those centers, and in most cases where that's the case, the staff can't set a phone call. They can't follow a phone script. They can't close for the appointment. They're unable to overcome objections. So rule number 1, everyone on the team has to absolutely know how to answer the phone. And I don't mean to figure out what's that thing making that noise rhythmically in the corner somewhere. Oh, I pick it up. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how to greet people on the phone, what questions to ask, how to redirect inquiries, how to overcome objections, close for an appointment, and know how to do that with great success, as many as 4, 5, 6 times in an effort to schedule the appointment. So number 1 is knowing how to answer the phone. Number 2, the one thing that all centers that get the highest rate of return on their advertising have in common is they understand follow-up. If you think running an ad and someone schedules and that everyone's going to show up, you've been poorly and horribly misinformed. Someone's giving you some bad information as to how this works in the weight loss industry. The weight loss industry is notorious for a horrible show rate. Your best days, you can expect half the people you schedule an appointment with to show up. So what do you do with the other half? Constant and relentless, immediate follow-up. We have the effective, most effective protocol for following up on all those ads or all those ad responses that failed to show up. And we also have a protocol. So what do you do with these people 6 months later, 9 months later, a year later? In some cases, for the centers that we work with that have been open for quite some time, they're working databases of people that inquired about their services as many as 10, 15, and 20 years ago. Believe it or not, they have the same phone number. And you need to know what to do with those people. So the first thing is know how to answer the phone. Number two is know how to follow up on those appointments. When following up on those appointments, you need to know what phone scripts to use and what technology to use. And that technology includes outbound calls, text messaging, emailing, and blast voicemail. There's a very specific way to do all of those. The timing is absolutely critical. Well, you can say, and a lot of people that we speak to say, oh, we tried text blasting and it didn't work. Well, how many times? Oh, we did it at least 2 or 3 times. Well, it doesn't work only 2 or 3 times. There is a pattern of behavior your center needs to engage in where you routinely and regularly are having contact points with people. Understand the people that didn't come into your center, again, no secret sauce here, you need to, it's very well known, it's a published statistic, you need to reach out to these people as many as 12.5 times before they'll ever set another appointment with you, let alone do business with you. Dozens, in some cases it's dozens of times, and you just need to set up a system that accomplishes that. The third thing that centers have in common that get the highest rate of return on their advertising is everyone who does a sales presentation knows that sales presentation in and out. They can do it without distraction, and they can do it quickly. Sales presentations that last less than 25 minutes or less have the highest close rates. Presentations that last 25 minutes or more, and I mean even 5 minutes more than that, have the lowest close rates. So if you're looking for the ideal presentation protocol, regardless of your brand, regardless of your technologies, we can coach you on how to shorten up that presentation, and that includes fact finding. Your actual presentation portion shouldn't last more than maybe 3 to 4 minutes. That's it. You need to save enough time for overcoming the objection and closing the sale, and overcoming more objections and hitting hot buttons and closing the sale again. So answering the phone, doing follow-up, using technology, and being able to do a fast presentation of 25 minutes in duration or less. The last couple of things are all kind of an amalgamation, and I'll just say the centers that get the highest rate of return also have the highest referral base. I ran a brand for years that our mantra was don't advertise. Other than grand opening, you shouldn't be running a single ad anywhere. It's all internal marketing. It's all you need to be doing, all the things you need to do except for running an ad. And we had centers that were very, very profitable. And we grew like crazy. In fact, Inc. magazine ranked us as the 15th fastest growing company in America in one particular year. I think we made the top 20 like 4 or 5, maybe even 6 years in a row. So you need to understand the concepts of referral generation and internal marketing. How do you cold call? Well, you can't cold call the way you did 20 years ago or even 10 years ago for that matter. The do not call list has thrown a monkey wrench into that, and people are fatigued by robocalls. So who do you call? We have a population of people you can start calling this morning. We have a script, we have offers, we have appointment presentations that you can close for the appointment right away. And again, the same thing, you got about a 50% show rate on that. And if you're doing things right, at least a 50% close rate, but ideally an 80% close rate. So know how to answer the phone, understand follow-up is involved, embrace technologies using the proper protocol, do a presentation that lasts 25 minutes or less, and focus exceptionally well on internal marketing so you can have referral generation. And as a side note to that, part of the internal marketing is tied to the quality of service you provide to your patients, your clients, and your members. So obviously, you're not going to get it all figured out after a 7 or 8 minute video, however long this is. So if you'd like more information, you may want to explore IntelliFran and becoming a client of IntelliFran. If you don't know who we are, that's our fault. We are the only provider in the United States of operations support for weight loss providers, regardless of your brand. We work with nearly 30 brands, over 125 locations, close to 130 locations now in multiple countries. And what we do is we provide everything from lead generation guidance all the way through staff training and hiring to individualized counseling for patients, clients, and members to make sure they're hitting their goal weight by their goal date. Media buying, postmortems on medias. If you have a media buyer that does it for you, postmortems on those buys. We will do individual coaching, staff coaching. We'll go through every single presentation you've done if need be, every call that you make. We do sales training. We do outbound call training and observation and a whole host of things. We have worked with as many as 600 locations throughout the United States, many of which have been in Inc. 500's top fastest growing companies in America as for weight loss. But we deal with physicians, chiropractors, as well as franchise investors, whether you're just localized, a part of a regional group, or even a national franchise. Give us a call. There's 12 ways to reach us to explore more about working with IntelliFran. Have a great day. And don't forget, every Tuesday and Thursday, we have a power train at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Have a great day.
Let's go.